analyst Sarah Kustok is joining us again. Sarah, thanks for sticking around.
Thanks for having me back.
Hanging out
Thanks
with
for
us.
letting me hang.
We are talking about the Warriors. They are still fighting for the 1 seed in the West. Game and a half back of the Rockets. They played the Lakers last night. All right, let's work backwards. They won the game. Let's work forwards. They did it with a watered-down lineup. No Steph Curry, no Klay Thompson, no Draymond Green, all three nursing injuries. No problem for the Warriors, or is it? Sarah, how big of a deal is this for Golden State, all these injuries?
I don't think all of the injuries are a big deal, and even the most recent one that we heard about, Klay Thompson, I am not that concerned from what you hear. He's going to be reevaluated, next week or so, may miss 4 games, but it seems like I think that may be around the timeline. Steph Curry is the one who concerns me, and it's not so much they have made it clear that they are not looking at this as a serious ankle injury. It's serious, the fact of the frequency of this injury. 4 times since December. He's a guy who clearly is such a pivotal part of the team. So to me, that's concerning, because even if it's nagging, even if it's just a little bit, you don't know what happens come playoff time, given how Houston's playing. I mean, there's so many of a trickle-down effect. So that, to me, is a concerning injury.
Before we dive fully into Steph's injury, I want to ask you one thing about Klay, because I know you made your bones as a shooter when you playing basketball. A broken bone in his hand, even if they expect
broken bone in his thumb.
Correct. Apologies. Broken bone in his thumb. Even if they expect it to fully heal, you don't think that'll have any effect on him once it is fully healed?
I would be more concerned, the way you shoot, I would be more concerned if it was a wrist. If it was a hand injury, if it was a wrist injury, that would make me more worrisome just with his shooting form. I'm not a doctor. I don't know, but it being in his thumb, to me, that's less pressure. There's less usage of it. It's more of a guidance. So to me, that doesn't concern me as much. But I will say, this Warriors team, and you probably have the numbers, has not played without Klay Thompson.
He's been their Iron Man
his
whole run.
Astounding. And so
that's concerning.
And if they are to play without, I think Klay Thompson is massively undervalued. Obviously, offensively, we know what type of shooter he is, but he's not just low maintenance, he is no maintenance. And what he does defensively...
it's not just how good of a defender he is, it's who he allows Steph not to guard. It's that he is always guarding the other team's best perimeter player, so they can on most teams, they can hide Steph on the other team's worst perimeter player.
I disagree with you as far as the hand, and the reason why is because every NBA player knows that Klay's hurt. So the first game he comes back, I'm going to be swiping. And they say in basketball that your hand is part of the ball. So when you're dribbling or you go to shoot the ball, they can be slapping at your hands all the time and it not be a foul. NBA players are very smart. They are not naive enough to not read the scouting report. Him and Kevin Love, when you have injuries like that, where a guy, it's just no different than a running back having a knee or an ankle. When he runs in the NFL, when he gets in the pile, guys give him the business. Now, when you have a hand injury and you are talking about the playoffs, you can believe that I'm going to be slapping your hand. Now, I don't think that I'm brighter than the other NBA players. I know I don't read as much information on the injury report as other NBA players, so I expect this to continue being a problem. And the reason why it's a problem is because they will never be healthy until after the season. Like, the doctor will clear them to play, but being cleared to play and being healthy are 2 totally different things.
I think, though, this allows, I think when we've talked so much about chasing that #1 seed and the importance for Houston, I think this allows them to say, okay, we're going to be the 2 seed. That's going to be it. Do we need Klay to come back in a week and a half? No, we can
you don't
wait
have to
until,
rush it now.
You don't need to rush him. You don't need to rush Steph. You don't need to rush Draymond. So I think that's an important aspect to it. I also think a fracture is different than a sprain or a jam or something with the actual ligaments in your hand.
So you started with Steph. Now I want to get to Steph, because 4 separate times this year he's tweaked this ankle. 2 of them have been significant enough to miss what I would consider a significant amount of time. The first time he missed a couple weeks. This time it's going to be a couple weeks. Like, we'll see how long they're going to reevaluate him. But this is not something, as Cece mentioned, nobody's going to feel bad for the Warriors. And this is something the Warriors have been incredibly lucky about. We can look at every year in the NBA. There is not a fringe team, a title contender who has it all wrecked due to injury. Now, this has not been wrecked at all for the Warriors as of now.
Right.
But I'm telling you right now, if Steph Curry hurts his ankle again and is out for the playoffs, that, to me, wrecks their title chances. That happens year after year in this league. Go ahead, CC.
The one thing that I don't think anyone's looked at is Steph. Under Armour paid him a lot of money to come up with his own designer shoe. When he became kind of one of the faces of the NBA, he kind of unanimous MVP. They paid him a lot of money. Now, I've been fairly close to several players. Michael Jordan. I remember Michael, when they were trying to design his shoe, there were some problems. And Michael made sure they got that right because Michael didn't want to have any problems with his feet. Kobe Bryant, when they came up with his signature shoe with Nike, he had some problems with the overall design. He took control, ended up having one of the best basketball shoes ever. LeBron James, we've seen him sprain his ankle a couple times, but there is no better support for playing basketball than the shoes LeBron James has. Now, Steph Curry, you can cut grass in them things. You can play tennis in them things. I don't think those are the best basketball shoes. But because of money, Steph Curry, the biggest problem he's had in the NBA has been his ankles. Now, for me, if I'm wearing my own shoe and I sprain my ankle 4 times this season, that is something that I would have to look at. The equipment that I'm wearing, I design, and it's not supporting my game because that's an inordinate amount of ankle sprains for a guy as athletic as him.
So that's a big deal, and that's something that we haven't talked about or heard about yet. And I'm wondering if he's even allowed to do something else, or if he's put that correlation together.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you would know better. I can't imagine he is allowed to do something else, nor would
He should have some type of control on the design, though. The shoe is designed after him.
But that wouldn't be able to happen until after the playoffs. So would that happen?
I mean, he is the biggest guy at Under Armour besides.
Could he change that, though, at any point prior to this?
If his shot wasn't going in, would he look at changing his shot?
I think she means.
I just believe that being part of it.
Could they logistically? Could they do it that quickly, though? Do you think?
Any other major shoe company would be looking into doing something and doing it quick to get it on his feet. Like, if he's selling shoes and he's having problems with ankles, does that transfer into more shoe sales? I don't think so.
So they're already.
And the other thing is with the Warriors, it's not just Steph. We were talking about Draymond's nagging injuries. Andre Iguodala all of a sudden looking older. And people forget Andre Iguodala was a minutes warrior in Philadelphia. Like, people forget how he led the league in minutes a couple times. He was playing 80-plus games a year. Like, Andre Iguodala is an old 32, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because of the wear and tear on his body pre-Golden State. And let's just look at, so there's 2 teams that have been in the finals 3 straight years, right? The Warriors, they obviously added Kevin Durant, but they have a lot of the same pieces. The Cavs have 5 guys that have been on all of the NBA Finals teams that are still on the roster, right? Let's look at what's happened to them this year. Kyrie was one of those guys. He asked to leave. JR was one of those guys. He threw a bowl of soup at the coach and is playing the worst basketball of his life. Kevin Love's one of those guys. He was in such a place mentally, he wanted to share with the world what he was going through. Tristan's one of those guys. He's about to marry a Kardashian, it appears. Like, these guys are going through either on the court or off the court something of existential crises. LeBron dealt with it in Miami, so he's more equipped to deal with it. Like, what the Warriors, the spotlight, 100 games, 3 years in a row, the wear and tear on your body, what we had saw. Now, while the Warriors don't have guys throwing soups, they do have a guy who threw a mouthpiece. They do have Kevin Durant all of a sudden getting all these technicals. Like, you can see this, the added spotlight, the added games, the added wear and tear. It's why the list of teams that go to the finals 4 straight years, you count them on one hand. It doesn't happen in the NBA.
Well, I also think they're the change in their bench, and they've had no continuity. So we've talked about the lack of depth, or whether it's Livingston or Iguodala, they've had no continuity in their depth, and this is probably the weakest that they've been in that area. So to me, that's another concern. And going back to the injuries, real quick, like, I think Klay is just, I think if you don't have Klay for the postseason, if you don't have Draymond, for as important as Steph and Kevin are, I think the way Houston has been playing, if you don't have one of those 2 players as well, in Klay or in Draymond, that changes the complexion of things.
Now that you've seen this Warriors team without Steph for a couple games, what they did, what they didn't, and what Durant has been able to do, who would you say is the most important person, the most important peg on this team?
I still think Steph. I think Kevin is the best player on the team. I think he is the most talented. To me, I think Steph is what makes them go. And Steph is a guy who creates and initiates so much of their offense, what they're able to do. I think, Kevin defensively has improved so drastically.
But the other
with the
thing,
Warriors.
when we were talking earlier about Kevin Love, and you talked about when he comes on the court, the added gravity that he puts on a defense, I feel like Steph Curry, prior to Steph Curry, that term gravity wasn't even used very often in the NBA. Steph Curry has the most gravity of any player in league history as far as what he forces his defender when he doesn't have the ball to cover him from 35 feet.
I was going to say, he crosses half court, and he's a threat. Right. And that makes a difference. In the
Let
way
you play
in which the
4-on-4 when he
runs.
doesn't have the ball. Like, if Steph wants to stand alone, you can play 4-on-4 basketball. It's much easier to score.
Sarah Kustok, thank you so much.
Thank you
for stopping by and hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Coming up, let's talk some football. Can Baker Mayfield be the best player in the NFL draft? Ryan Leaf joins us next to discuss that and more. First things first.